Welcome back to the Be a Force podcast brought to you by B Squared Management. I am your host, Melissa Lopez, and today I've got with me certified psychic, tarot card reader, legally ordained minister, and author, Miss Corbie Mitleid. Corbie, how are you today?
Rocking and rolling, my friend. How are you?
Good. I'm excited to talk to you because you've got a very unique and interesting story. Now, as I mentioned, you are a certified psychic and tarot card reader. Now, how did you find these abilities and begin doing this?
When I was 9, I read a book called The Witch Family by Eleanor Estes. And instead of thinking, ooh, that's scary, or ha, 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 I thought, and your point is, I knew there was magic in the world and I wanted it. Fast forward to 1973. I was a senior in high school, working part-time at Spencer Gifts, and they had the James Bond 007 tarot deck, and I bought it. I mean, we were all hippies then. You needed your fringe jacket, your elephant bells, and your deck. And 5 years later, everybody else went for roller skates and disco balls. I was still fascinated by cards, so I read for friends and kept making sure that I was the clear tube that it came through, and it wasn't my ego talking. All of a sudden, in 1994, I could do hands-on healing and dead people talking with no training. I figured that's when Spirit said to me, hello, here's your draft notice, you're working for us. That's when I started doing it part-time. 9/11, I looked at my husband and I said, I need to do my work full-time. People need to know there are other answers out there. And he said, what's written inside my wedding ring? I believe in you. So I finished up for 1 year working as an executive recruiter, doing the psychic work evenings and weekends to make sure I could make a living. 2002, sayonara, and I've never looked back, and I've been doing full-time psychic work since then.
Wow. That's an amazing story just to go for it like that. I would imagine, especially when you were younger, first finding these abilities, being scared. I mean, I would have been so afraid and not sure what to do. You mentioned how you had dead people talking to you. How did you know that's what was happening? Like, what was it about those moments that you knew this is exactly what's happening and I need to follow this?
I was working with someone in Colorado doing some past life investigation, and all of a sudden, lots of people from a particular place and time were coming in and talking to me and giving me information I could not have known myself. But when I went to look these things up, for instance, one of them was very obscure and told me what regiment he was in 1914. I had to go to a book in German in 1898 to look it up, and there he was on the list.
Wow.
So you can't fake those.
Wow.
And now when I work with mediumship, talking to dead people, I'm very, very picky about the information I get. I have to be more convinced almost my clients.
Wow, that's crazy. That would have totally scared me. But also it's pretty awesome because it does kind of give you that extra reassurance, like there's something bigger happening here that most of us are not in tune with, but it's really nice to know that there is this other thing going on. Now, you said how 9/11 really encouraged you to give it your all. What was it about 9/11? Was it all of the loss that kind of really, encouraged you to make sure that you could help other people?
When something that huge happens, people get scared.
Yeah.
People can sometimes gravitate to the wrong answers. And while it was a horrendous event, it was needed by the world as a huge wake-up call. So rather than let people run to fear, I wanted to help them find ways of finding their own empowerment, how they can walk through it, how they can meet the challenge without negating the horror of what happened. Right. Say, that doesn't have to define your life completely. Where do you go from here?
Now, did you help a lot of people who were directly affected by 9/11?
Oh, I probably talked to 50 or 60 people who were there, yes.
Oh, amazing.
Yes, affected people I've done soul plan readings for. Why was I there? Why did I lose my friend? So yes.
Wow. Yeah, that was a really horrible time. I actually am from DC and I saw the smoke and everything and had to deal with the Pentagon crash myself, actually. And I know people who lost family members in that. So it was a really, really, really scary time for all of us at that time. And of course, we all appreciate anybody who was able to find a way to help any of us who were directly affected by this and, witnessed to it and lost people in it. So definitely thank you for taking that time and that cue to go, I need to go out there and help everyone who's dealing with this and just people in general. So I really appreciate that. You mentioned that you noticed that you could do healing without any formal training. Now, do you remember the first time that you did healing without the training and realized, whoa, wait a minute, I've got this extra power I didn't even know about?
Well, I'm going to correct you there. I I don't have the power. I'm just the tube it comes through.
Gotcha.
But a dear friend of mine had bronchitis that the antibiotics were not touching. And I said, let me see if I can help, because I knew that I could kind of relieve pain.
Mm-hmm.
But I put my hands on her shoulders, stood behind her, and all of a sudden was given this view of the way in late winter, early spring, you start seeing the liquid flow underneath the creek, and then the ice breaks down and things get moving. And I told her that was what I was seeing, and I transferred that from my own mind. I envisioned it overlaying her lungs. She was, within 48 hours, halfway to health.
Wow.
When the antibiotics hadn't touched it. Now, the trap is to think that I did that. That's where ego gets in the way. And as Wayne Dyer always said, ego stands for edging God out. When you realize you're just the tube, baby, and you got drafted, then you don't get tired when you do the work, and you are completely clear on who's getting it done, so you don't get trapped in ego.
Oh, I love that. That's a really great way of looking at it, because ego is definitely a big thing, I think, that people get trapped in general when they're doing certain things to help other people, that sometimes they do get trapped in that. So I like that you're the tube that it comes through. I'm going to try to remember that, because I think that's a really awesome way to look at it and just say that that's what it is. So when you first discovered that you might be psychic, what were the steps that you took to really hone in on your skills and really learning how this whole thing works and how you could use it to heal and to help people and just to really understand what was happening in the world?
A lot of it was self-growth, had to be. I started with cards because I love the pictures. The pictures are allegory. They tell a story. And when people are given a story instead of you have to do this, they listen, they take it in, and they remember. The way I learned to do spirit guides, angels, and dead people is a wonderful book called Opening to Channel by Sanaya Roman and Dwayne Packer. It's been around for 30 years. It's still out. It's still great. And I made a lot of mistakes because I didn't really have teachers per se. I mean, I had a little bit of one in my 20s and a little bit of one in my early 40s, but the rest of it was all trial and error when I kept banging on the door of spirit and saying, okay, now what do you want? Now what do you want? Now what do you want? And I was always turned back to look at my own life challenges and learn from there. So self-taught in that sense.
Oh, wow. And then how did you go about getting certified? Because I know you're certified psychic and a certified tarot card reader.
All right, it's actually a certified professional tarot cards reader. And we had the Tarot Certification Board of America several years ago. I'm not sure if it's still in operation. And I sat with the executive director for 3 hours. And it's not just, do you know the meaning of the cards? It's, can you design spreads? How do you change someone's question perspective? You know, you don't say, is my business going to be successful? Because what if I said no?
Right.
You say, how can I make my business successful? And then that allows me to empower you with the information I get. Certified Psychic was with a group that is also, it was 15 years ago and they're long gone. But what I consider as certified is how many people I've read, how many people I've helped. I read about 1,200 people a year. I have clients all over the world. And if I was lousy, they wouldn't come back to me.
That's true. Very, very true. So now you've written a book. So it's called Clean Out Your Life Closet. And your book has 4 parts. You talk about clarity, adaptability, simplicity, and stress. So can you tell me a little bit about your book? Of course, we don't want spoilers, but I'd love to know how all those pieces kind of come together so we can clean out our life closet and kind of change our story and make sure we live our best lives.
There's not one person who's listening that hasn't gone into the self-help section and seen these books with the great covers and the sexy titles and said, wow, maybe this can solve my life. And they get it home and they read a chapter and they think, oh God, this isn't talking to me. And they put it on the shelf.
Yeah.
That's why I wrote this. I wrote the book that I couldn't find. And the thing is, I knew that my life story was mine, and whoever picked it up had to be able to resonate with the book. So what I did is I took a poll. I had 36 subjects, and these were the 4 that people needed the most information on. And while I wrote the book, I didn't say, do everything I tell you and it all gets better, because it doesn't. I say, here are the stupid things I did in my life. Here's some examples you might want to think about. And then at the end of each chapter, there are open-ended questions in what I call the adventure pages, where you take what I wrote and make it specifically fit your life, so that by the end of the book, if you've done all the chapter exercises, that becomes your personal manual, and anybody else who would read that book would end up with a different one.
Oh, that's pretty awesome. So it's kind of like you're really creating your own story, your own plan, your own way of taking everything that you've experienced and you're sharing. And it really is making it personal because it's got the open ended questions at the end. So it's pretty cool. And it allows you to be introspective.
My business is to be your guide and mentor,
Yeah.
so that you, the reader, can find your own answers, design your own toolbox, and discover that healing the old and creating the new doesn't have to be painful. It can be positive and joyful and soul satisfying.
And that's what we need because it does seem like it would be painful when you're going back and healing your past pains. And when you talk about healing, I know you talk about like being able to like find our own healing. Are there any tools specifically you would say that we need to really look at as far as finding our own healing?
I have always used the 3 questions I learned from the Option Institute in Massachusetts way back in the mid-'80s. We always ask ourselves, what are we unhappy about? Then we may say, why are we unhappy about that? But we get lost there. Mm-hmm. We never ask the vital third question: what would happen if I stopped being unhappy about that? And you can make it unhappy or depressed or angry or scared or whatever that emotional key is. When you realize that you do have your own answers inside, all you have to do is explore, be that happy explorer. I call that being a Martian. Then you will be able to discover where it started, why it started, and how to walk through it.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. All right. So you have to look at and like figure out, well, okay, let's just stop doing that and keep going from there. You know, you talk about a soul plan. Now, what is a soul plan? And there's lots of different pieces to it. So what's a soul plan and how do we discover a soul plan?
I worked on a book series with Robert Schwartz, the beginning of the 21st century. He's written 2 books, Your Soul's Plan and Your Soul's Gift, which explain that karma is not carrot and stick. Karma are the lessons we choose to learn, and he's found 5: healing, service, contrast. If you want to learn about abundance, you have to be both rich and poor. Unbalanced energy and healing of beliefs. The idea is, yes, there is free will in our lives, but we come down with specific lessons we want to learn. Think of it as the specific lessons are the major you choose in college. How do you learn them? You can either go gut courses or double major class lab, depending on how difficult your life becomes because of your choices. So there are 2 of us that are doing soul plan readings, as in Robert's book. One of them is by my dear friend Stacey Wells, who actually is the one who sees the pre-birth planning conference that you do in your life between lives. I was the one in Rob's book who was the past life specialist who was able to help you talk to your own soul, we call that your higher self, and figure out where to go from here. So soul plan readings are intense for me. I usually spend 8 to 10 hours in deep trance meditation before you and I are on the phone for an hour discussing what I found.
Wow.
Which is why I only do like 2 a month. I do lots of other things for my roster of sessions, but soul plan readings only 2 a month because at the end of the day, my friend, I am a crispy critter.
Wow, that's really interesting. That's so crazy that you have to spend that much time, but also you're getting really in-depth information when you're doing that. So, I mean, kudos to you. Wow. I mean, like I'm impressed with all the things that you're able to do and all the things that you offer. Could you share with everybody all of the service that you have available to everyone and also how they can find those services and get in touch with you if anyone would love to get some readings and get some planning and coaching? Because I know you do coaching and do some healing and stuff with you.
All right, let me run through it quick. General readings are your everyday tour bus. House, car, job, kids. Okay, gotcha. Put me here. Now what? I do Finding Your Sentence of Passion, which is if you want to find your passion and purpose and your rallying cry for your life. Yes, I help you brainstorm new age businesses. Because I used to be an executive recruiter, you get to use both halves of my brain, the left recruiter and the right psychic. And I also mentor people through their businesses as well. I do the soul plan readings. I do Finding Your North Star, which is you don't really talk to me, but I do the trance work to tell you some of the things you came in to do. All of that can be found on my website, which, funnily enough, is CorbieMitleid.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Corbie, for sharing all that information with us. I feel like you have been helping so many people. Your 9/11 story about, deciding to go for it really resonates with me. And I love all that work that you're doing. So thank you so much for offering yourself to us in this way and being able to help us find our higher beings and healing ourselves. Thanks again for talking to me today.
It was a pleasure.
Thanks again for listening to the Be a Force podcast, brought to you by B Squared Management. I'm your host, Melissa Lopez, and until next time, be a force.